Hey guys, since I have this new book about the human body, I will refer you about the body's building blocks. Let's get started. The body is made of units called cells. Most of them are tiny. You can see them only through a microscope. Several hundred cells could fit onto this full stop. They are also incredibly numerous. There are about 100 million cells in a human body, around 20,000 times the number of people in the world today. Cells are enormously varied too. There are dozens of cell types in the body, each with a particular shape and size, and each designed for a special job. The cell is often called the basic unit of life. This is because all living things are made of cells. Indeed, some living things, such as amoebas, consist of only a single cell. Amoebas looks like a mini school bags of jelly as they ooze along the bottom of ponds. The amoeba single cell contains all the amazing complex to carry out the basic tasks of life, such as sensing its surroundings, moving about, feeding, disposing of its waste products, and reproducing. A small worm that is as thin as a hair and as long as a rice grain is built out of many hundreds of cells. Insects, such as mosquitoes, have tens of thousands of cells. Large living things, from human bodies to oak trees, are built out of many billions, thousands of millions of tiny cells. Seeing cells. The technology needed to see what typical cells look like did not exist the early 1600s. When the light microscope was invented during the 15th century, pioneering microscopists such as the Dutch cloth dealer Antonie van observed the huge number and variety of cells in the nature. The Italian microscopist Marcello was one of the first scientists to concentrate on studying the cells in the human body. He described their basic structures and suggested theories about how they might function. Looking closer. The light microscope is still the most common microscope in use today. It can magnify an object about 1,000 times. A simple light microscope is used for several experiments in this book. If you look through a light microscope at body cells, you may be able to see a few vague structures inside them. Each of these structures within a cell is called an organelle, little organ. One of the most prominent is a dark blob. The nucleus. This is the control center of the cell and the site of its genetic instructions. For around 3 centuries, microscopists studied the hazy outlines of organelles, but they could only guess at what cells look like in detail. The development of electron microscope in the 1930s meant that far greater magnifications became possible. Some electron microscopes can magnify objects by more than 1 million times. Instead of rays of light, the electron microscope used beams of automatic particles called electrons, which are fired at the specimen. These are the same particles that are fired at the inside of a television screen to make it glow. The specimen is not studied through an eyepiece. Instead, an image of it appears on a visual display screen. Using an electron microscope, the modern microscopist can see cells and their organelles in amazing details. Although many mysteries concerning cells remain, we now understand more than ever before the way they work. Watery environment. Like amoebas, human cells live in a watery environment. There is water both inside and outside the membrane, the cell's outer barrier. Individual water molecules are small enough to pass between the molecules in the cell membrane by osmosis, by a process that the cell cannot control. Although water can pass in and out of the cell in this uncontrolled way, nutrients, mineral, and other essential items cannot because their molecules are too large to pass through the membrane. If, as a result, the concentration of these substances became too low or too high inside or outside the cell, water would flow into or out of the cell by osmosis. Such a fluid could destroy the cell and damage the body. The reason that this does not normally happen is that each cell membrane can regulate the passage of larger molecules through a kind of door. In the membrane, molecules of nutrients and mineral are continually being passed through these doors as the cell works to keep a healthy balance of a body. Chemical factory. Living things like vast, complex chemical factories, hundreds of chemical changes and reactions occur every second in each living cell. These changes can take place only if the chemical substances are in the form of a watery solution, dissolved in water. So water is vital for life of any kind. In solution, chemical substances are free to drift around the cell, spreading by processes such as diffusion. A cell is not a random collection of chemicals floating about as if they were in a bowl of soup. Instead, just as the interior space of an office building is organized into useful sections by walls, doors, floors, elevator shaft, windows, and stairways. The cell's interior is highly structured too. Membranes are found not only surrounding a cell as a barrier, but also inside the cell. These membranes curve, bend, and fold back on themselves to create tube, channel, compartments, organelles, and other structures in which chemicals are organized, and in the same way that the whole body has a framework of bones to give it shape and strength. A cell also has a framework. This is made of scaffolding, like microtubes of protein found in the clear food of cycloplums. Cell types. If you want to carry a heavy load from one place to another, you might use a lorry. If, however, you need to make a quick trip alone, you might use a small car instead. In the same way, there are many different types of body cells for different tasks. For example, nerve cells carry tiny electrical signals around the body, while blood cells carry oxygen from part to part, and epithelial cells from protective coverings or linings. Each different types of cell has a unique design with a different number of organelles. The lifespan of the different types of cell vary too. The cells that line the intestine are rubbed away by digested food, squeezing through the intestine tube. These cells within a few hours of being formed and pass out of the body in phases. In contrast, cells called oysterocytes made a hard substance around themselves. This substance is bone. As the bone builds up, it traps the cell that manufactured it, unable to move. The other side lived in their cell-built prison for many years. Yes, now you have learned all about the body's building blocks. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!